Hey, Steve.
Hello, Richard. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Are you enjoying your why I left the right arc? Normally these go the other way around, so.
There's a lot of interest in it. I was in a New York Times piece. Did you see this?
Oh, I haven't yet.
It's by Michelle Goldberg, and it seems to be stretching. It's trying to argue that there's a post-MAGA right, and the person it uses is Alex Kashuda. You know that woman?
I do not. Who are they?
Alex Kashuda, she's some Substacker and person on Twitter, not that famous, but one person who regretted supporting the dissident right. She had a Scott Alexander who never supported Trump in the first place,
Hmm.
me, and then Pedro Gonzalez, who was always against Trump and supported DeSantis. So it seemed like they're trying to meme something into existence. They found, I think, maybe one or two people who did it who were regretful
Sure.
about what happened, and they made that into an article.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right. Um, have you been having fun on your doing shows or?
Yeah, I mean it's all right. I mean it sort of sucks. It sucks to be this wrong. It sucks to. I mean, I laid down a marker. I'm glad we talked on election night. I think that's the last time I saw you, and I think I explicitly said if RFK wins, was that election night? Do you remember? I think it was our. It was. I think it was election night.
Yeah, I
If
watched.
RFK gets appointed,
Yeah, I think I watched you break this up with
HHS.
Crystal. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was it was good. You got that on the on the record, and I had money that it would not he would not get a cabinet appointment at the time, and then he gets the appointment, and this is like how it's kind of I'm thinking about writing a longer piece on what I got wrong, and I think it's part of it is there's obvious cognitive errors and things I didn't take seriously enough, but part of it is also kind of personal networks. So I would talk to people who are close to the administration or who were going into the administration, and the people I talked to, there was obviously a selection effect where they're the people who talk to me.
Hmm.
So everyone I talk to thinks RFK's out of his mind. They're all telling me there's no way, it's not that bad. RFK is not going to get, HHS. And even when he gets HHS, some of these same people or some new people are telling me, well, he's going to be boxed in. He's going to be, they're going to put these Peter Thiel guy and these other guys around him, and they're going to, believe in medicine and science. And science. And I'm
Hmm.
like, okay. And then it's like, no, you can't write mRNA vaccines. You can't mention them on your government application anymore. So I would have been better off to be more in your situation, looking in from the outside and seeing what's happening rather than having these biased sources of information.
So the thing that is the most curious to me, just curious, how long do you have?
I've got time.
Okay, all right. Because there's a lot of different things that are like swirling around in my mind about this. Okay, one thing that's interesting to me is it feels like somehow Trump became kind of this like empty vessel for everybody to kind of insert their own beliefs or feelings into him about what he would do. Do you have any feelings about this, or do you feel like you've ever done this, or do you feel like people around you do this, or how can you explain that?
Yeah, I think so because he says so many things that are contradictory.
Hmm.
So obviously, if you believe in free market capitalism or you believe in economic redistribution, there's something there to grab on. Even on immigration, he says we're going to deport them all, and then sometimes he says I go to business and I tell them, they're not going to lose their maids and and so forth. So yeah, I think there's a lot of people who see Trump as a vessel, and they're trying to kind of you gain legitimacy by like channeling the true Trump. And the point of kind of MAGA world is to convince everyone that you're like the true Trump interpreter. You're the true intellectual foundations of Trumpism.
Hmm. Why do you think it is the case that, or what do you think is the distinguishing factor here where if it feels like if an ordinary politician were to say, hey guys, I'm going to protect your right to have guns, and then the next day they say, hey guys, I'm going to take all your guns, I hate them, that everybody would look at that person and go, well, I don't trust anything they say because they have an obvious contradiction here. But it feels like Trump could say, hey guys, I'm going to take your guns, and then the next day say, hey guys, I'm going to leave your guns alone. And whatever you want to think about him, you'll find a way to make both of those statements simultaneously correct. Like, I don't know if you remember this, but I want to say it was in 2019. Trump was sitting with Pam Bondi when I think she was the attorney general of some state. And she was talking about the importance of red flag laws or something. And Trump was just full on agreeing with her, like, yeah, the cops have to wait like 6 months. They just need to go in and take the guns. And it was like, holy shit. They were like really strong statements about gun control. And I'm like, damn, if Kamala or Biden would have said anything remotely similar to this, they would have gotten raked over the coals for his, like, they just need to go in and take the guns. But that like never comes up. What do you think is the difference there? Why do you think for Trump he can get away with saying so many contradictory things, and then rather than view him as a hypocrite, people just kind of add their own interpretation or fill his statements with their own meaning?
Okay, so you can think about it in terms of kind of the Trump voter or the intellectual conservative elite, the intelligentsia. And I think the voter is not ideological in the first place. So the voter loves Donald Trump. They love his personality. They love the fact that he owns the libs. It's just a personal connection. So for them, he can say X, Y. By the way, he doesn't say I'm going to take away all of the guns. I mean, he's pretty consistent most of the time, at least on the gun issue. You know, there are some kind of red lines that these people care about. But in general, like, yeah, that they just don't care about policy. It's all a cult of personality.
Sure.
Now, the conservative intelligentsia is interesting because these are the people often that do care about policy.
And then real quick, what can you define who is the conservative intelligentsia? Because I see different factions here when it comes to that.
So I'm thinking of people who are like the smartest people who are out there defending Trump right now.
But are we thinking like political punditry? So people like, say, like Charlie Kirk? Or are we thinking more like the new kind of Silicon Valley intelligentsia?
Well, I'm like the people I have in mind are people who write for like the American Mind, which you might not have heard of. People like Chris Rufo, people like the Claremont Institute.
Okay, so the politically oriented people. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, Twitter influence. I'm not thinking of Charlie Kirk is probably in that category too. But okay, but these people usually have some kind of ideas. And I think with them, they basically are in a position where they, you know, Trump is going to be the nominee in 2016, 2020, 2024, they are making their peace with that. And they are basically hitching their ride to him because they, you know, a lot of these people, by the way, so in 2016, like you have National Review, what was considered the conservative establishment then, they were all never Trump, right? So they liked somebody like Ted Cruz or Rubio or something like that. In 2024, it's hard to remember now, it wasn't that long ago, but a lot of these like Rufo types, they were all in on DeSantis for a while. And so was Elon and so was David Sachs. And so they rationally saw DeSantis as someone who was more ideologically closer to them. But then the voters had their say, and the voters like Trump a lot more than they like DeSantis. And at that point, it's just tribalism. It's just politics. That's their guy.
Sure. I definitely saw a lot of this going on. There is an endless amount of rich material to go through if you're looking for older conservatives and the statements they made on Trump, either in the early part of 2016, when it looked like Trump had no shot of winning, or after 2020, when it looked like Trump was never coming back. All of your kind of like principled conservatives. Now, I'm not thinking of the same writers that you're thinking of. I'm thinking more media type people, but I'm sure it was similar. You had your Matt Walsh's, your Ben Shapiro's, your Michael Knowles. These people were coming out like, I would never support Donald Trump. He stands for horrible things that are un-American. And then as 2022 rolls around, the tune starts to change a little bit because people are like, oh, fuck, he's coming back. And then they have to, you know, like you said, hitch their wagon to it again. Because if they don't, what, do you want to be a never Trumper? That's like never relevant, basically, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there was nobody with. I mean, when you look at 2016, it's fascinating because the first person in Congress to endorse Trump was Jeff Sessions, and Jeff Sessions was basically a one-issue guy. He was loved by like Breitbart types just because he was anti-immigration, and that's how Stephen Miller comes into Trump's orbit. So there's just people who Trump came on the scene. He's like, all the immigrants are rapists and so forth. They're just immigration is their issue. They kind of latched on to Trump, but you know he didn't really have many people then. And then after 2020. You're right. There was this other moment where, you know, they had the chance to convict him, and McConnell says he didn't try to whip the votes because Trump wasn't going to come back. So there was no point in convicting him. And then over time, it becomes like, yeah, I mean, this is purest democracy. I mean, he doesn't have, you know, he doesn't basically 95% of anyone you would consider an establishment in the conservative media. And those people changed. Their National Review in 2016, their Claremont Institute in 2024. These guys all love DeSantis. Either case, Trump just has the natural connection with the voters. So yeah, this is democracy at work.
You felt like it seemed like you felt like Trump 2 wouldn't be where it is now. That it'd be more comparable to Trump 1 in a variety of ways. Why do you think you felt that, or what part of your analysis do you think was like incorrect there, or that ended up being incorrect? Think like prospectively. It's easier retrospectively to be like, oh, you should have known this or that or that. But do you think there's something that you could have seen, or that other people were mentioning that you felt like you could have weighed differently at the time? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. No, I think that like, look, it was kind of foreseeable. I knew the arguments against Trump. I would write about how terrible he is and his movement is.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of knew the arguments, and I went in, with my eyes open. And if you told me I'd be in this situation in 4 months, I wouldn't have been shocked. I would have said there's a 10% chance it would go like this, or 15% chance, but it wouldn't have been something that I thought was impossible. Yeah, I think that I certainly over-indexed on the first administration. And then I underrated what I saw with like what was happening within the conservative movement. I'm thinking of it in terms of like, okay, there's Trump, there's the GOP establishment, there's the money guys, there's Elon, there's still, conservative ideology, there's voters, there's the markets that are going to discipline him. There's like all these institutions and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And like if someone RFK gets appointed to HHS secretary, there was talk that Bill Cassidy, a senator from Louisiana who's a doctor who likes vaccines, was going to vote against him, give permission to some other people to vote against him. So there was like, belief that things might work out this way. But I guess I just had not taken seriously my own arguments enough about how hollowed out conservatism has become. There's an article in the New York Times today about this Heritage Foundation girl who's against IVF and wants to do some pronatalism thing, but also is like into MAGA and wants to like merge RFK kind of crankery with like pronatalism. And like this is the Heritage Foundation now, and
Mm-hmm.
they weren't going in that direction 5 years ago. This is just what happened in the last 2-3 years. So yeah, I've underestimated just like the degree of like the cult like devotion to the man and how unrestrained he would be. Congress, within the administration, conservative media, markets, basically everything.
What do you think changed?
Changed since when?
Like what makes this administration, what gives it the capacity to be so much worse than the first administration? So you said you over-indexed on the first administration. So I imagine there was something that you incorrectly assessed, or you feel like you incorrectly assessed compared to this one. What do you think was the big change?
Oh, it's personnel. I mean, he came into office the first time, like the Bush kind of establishment Republicans were with him. So he's like, I like these generals. They're kind of out of central casting. He puts these generals in these different positions. They end up hating his guts, right? They all leave. Mike Pence is there, another kind of normal Republican. And then over time, it becomes more and more. He does this. He more and more he realizes that he has traitors in his mind all around him, and these people like Russell Vought and like Claremont Institute, they're thinking carefully about, okay, the deep state is thwarting the president's agenda, and they're thinking about personnel very carefully. And then after January 6th, right, more people leave him. People think Trump is done.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one of the smartest things he ever did was basically make the 2020 election your views on the 2020 election a litmus test. He basically made it that you had to submit to Trump's version of reality. You had to sit there and you had to say that he won the election no matter what. And basically, he understood that like personnel was everything. The movement over time selected for a certain kind of person. Like you had to tell more and more absurd lies as time went on. I like to compare. I remember the very famous Sean Spicer scene. It was like the first or second week of the administration. It was very early, where he has to lie about Trump's crowd size, where he goes out there and said Trump had a larger crowd size than Obama. And you look at him and he's embarrassed. He kind of like rushes off the podium after he says it.
Mm-hmm.
You look at this woman though, Caroline Levitt. My God,
Jeez.
she doesn't flinch.
Yeah.
She has none of that embarrassment, right? So it's like this Darwinian process. It's like a selection of the worst kind of person. And here we are, after 9 years of Trump being ridiculous and insane. What's left? I mean, what's left is Vance, it's Stephen Miller, it's the people who were best at playing this game.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that when you look at the threat, I guess, of a potential Kamala administration, what was the thing that you were so worried about for Kamala that, despite kind of seeing some of the writing on the wall, you were like, fuck it, I think I'm going to take my chance. You said 10%. I'm going to take my 10% chance with Trump, as opposed to risking what I imagine you would imagine is going to be a catastrophic outcome from the Kamala administration. What exactly, I guess, was that fear?
Just normal Democratic policies. At this point, it's kind of seems so like kind of not that concerning in retrospect, but higher taxes, higher regulation. I thought we would go on the path of being a European style social democracy, wokeness, stuff like that. Like I still think that stuff is bad, but it's just kind of crazy in comparison.
Mm-hmm. When you go on, I guess, well, here's a question. What do you think has prepared the mind of a MAGA person to fully support any single thing that Trump can do in a way that seems pretty unique to Trump? I kind of got at this with my first question. Like, what do you think has made it so that Trump can say or do basically anything and command so much power from within I say the Republican Party, really the MAGA Party. Like, for instance, I brought this up when Biden got kicked out of the Democratic Party. Basically, they said, sorry, Kamala's going to run. People were viewing this as a disaster and everything was like fucked up and who knows who's going to win the election. And I viewed it to some extent as kind of a victory in showing that, hey, there are Democrats that are trying to rein him in. Biden doesn't control the party. The president even doesn't control the Democratic Party, even when he is the president. So like, at least it shows that Democrats are willing to kind of like take a position and act some political power out to move somebody out. But for Trump, like, I mean, I'm sure you know by now, right? His MO is, if you go against me, when he takes questions from the media, he's like, what outlet are you with again? Who are you with? We're not doing questions from you today, right? And for Republican lawmakers, he's targeted cabinet members. I think he's mentioned Rubio, I think a couple times. What makes it so that, or what do you think makes it so that the MAGA person is so much more likely to be accepting of that?
Right. So you have to understand the MAGA coalition as, like, again, the voters, and then the kind of the people who are power seekers. I mean, power is tempting. There's no need complicated explanation needed for like why you would just kiss Trump's ass as a Republican politician, because that's what the voters want, and that's the surest way to get to power. So that's like you can condemn them as bad people, but you have to. It's not hard to understand like why Republicans are like this.
Well, sure. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the Republican voter because politically it makes sense. I actually totally understand Congress. I think it's still sad that not many of them are willing to stand up, but I get it. It's because if you go against Trump, Trump is insanely popular. He's so popular with Republicans. So if you go against him, you're basically saying, I'm done running for politics. I'm done. But I'm asking for the MAGA voter. How does that work, right?
Yeah, I did write an article a while ago called "The Biomechanics of Trumpism," when people thought that DeSantis was going to have a good chance, and the argument was like DeSantis's pitch was like, "I'm Trump. I'll give you the policies. I'll be smarter and more effective doing it, and I won't give you all the the crazy stuff and all the distractions." That was DeSantis's pitch. Now, if it was about issues in any way, you had DeSantis, and he there was nothing like no issue that Trump had that DeSantis didn't have that the voters cared about. I mean, DeSantis ran to like close to the base on vaccines. He was like more critical of Operation Warp Speed than Trump was. So he was just chasing the base on every issue. And so like you got to put issues aside. It's clearly not issues. It is kind of he is the when people talk about like the evangelical Christians who are why do they love Trump so much? You look at like they're kind of the leaders they go after. They go for this kind of charismatic leadership, this like surrender to this one person who they just like they pray to Jesus this way. This is what they have their like evangelist preachers, and Trump is just like kind of in that tradition. And so look, there's the combination of that. There's like some people are looking for something to submit to. They don't like the elites. Trump is a symbol of that. There's people who just are racist and sexist and dislike foreigners and think trade and immigration are bad things, and they see Trump as their avatar if he doesn't have the exact right policy paper, like whatever. And then there's just a huge portion of the conservative base, and this has been like this for decades now, who just wants to own the libs and is just reactive to whatever libs happen to be doing in the moment. And Trump is like a shelling point because he's like the person who is just the symbol of all this stuff, right? Like nobody can match him in attention or how much he pisses off the other side, but in part because he's so uniquely bad, right? Like the liberals hate him not because they have Trump derangement syndrome, in part because he is like a liar and like a threat to democracy and corrupt. And these people are often either they don't care or they don't trust news sources, so they don't know he's actually is corrupt, and there's like a legitimate case why liberals are mad at him. And they fall in line.
Do you think that there's anything? Do you think there's anything like a red line that Trump wouldn't be able to get away with that would turn his base against him?
I've been trying to come up with it. I mean, I've been really like, because that's the hope right now. I mean, there's no election until 2026, and I wonder what the kind of floor is for his approval rating. If the economy tanks, maybe we'll see. Bush got into the 20s, but Bush never had a cult of personality like this.
Hmm.
Um, and so yeah, I mean, it's like they've been through so much, right? It's like McCain when he said McCain. I like people who don't like. I mean, you imagine you have to put yourself back in the situation 2015. What a big deal it was for a Republican candidate to mock
A
a guy
veteran.
captured in war.
Yeah.
I mean, all these people, all they had was troops, troops, troops. Liberals don't love the troops. Patriotism. Like to mock a guy captured by the Viet Cong is just incredible, and it just bounced right off him. And it's been 10 years since of like every single thing. Okay, here's the line. Here's the line. Here's the line. I I don't know. I cannot imagine him going below 35-40%. Like he's got that base. He can take off his pants and take a dump on on the floor in the Oval Office. I somebody would be saying this is 4D chess. I mean, it really is like almost at that level. It could be something like that. I mean, if I'm like literally that, like
Yeah.
maybe, but like things that we could imagine, it's difficult. I can't even game it out in my head.
Do you think that there is, what do you view like the long-term damage, I guess, to the United States and our place in the world? Or actually, wait, before we do that, you talk about like human capital a lot on the conservative side, which I've understood to mean basically that conservatives have an issue getting kind of like talented, intelligent people, like just objectively, not like do you have the right
Yeah,
political opinion, right? But just like people that are well
yeah,
educated, understand how government, the world functions, whatever. They have a hard time
right.
getting these people on board with them. The first question, I guess, is why do you think, or maybe you don't feel this way? Do you feel like the crypto tech elite or whatever, have those people failed to impart their intelligence on the Trump admin? Are they not intelligent? How do you view that? Because I thought that was going to be a big infusion of human capital into conservatism, or at least MAGAism, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, this is another thing I've thought about, and I was the first person to use the term tech right in an article in 2023. And I asked ChatGPT if I was the first person, and it confirmed I was the first person to use it. So I
Good
was
job.
seeing this pretty early. This was 2023. This was before Elon went all in, before like there was this trend of these guys, basically identifying as Trump supporters. And I saw exactly that. I was happy. I was like, oh yes, they're obviously smart guys. They're gonna have come in with some prestige. They're gonna exercise some control over or some influence over the conservative movement, and we'll get smarter. Things will get better. We'll have better policies than otherwise. And yeah, that was another terrible prediction, terrible prediction because they made things worse. And it's kind of insane how stupid Elon is on Twitter, like compared to relative to his actual accomplishments. And from knowing some of these guys and watching them, I think that like the lesson here is none of us are that smart in isolation.
Hmm.
You need to have some way to know which sources to trust and how to go about acquiring information. And I think what happened with a lot of these guys is that they turned on the left because of wokeness, because of COVID, if because of sometimes the personal coverage that they got from like Kara Swisher and people in the New York Times. And they didn't just like still read the New York Times, but like, be hostile to it. They stopped paying attention to serious sources of media. They overcorrected and went all the other to the other side and basically said, I'm not going to trust anyone. I'm going to trust my own gut and basically whatever they were seeing in front of them on social media. And so, yeah, I mean, I had a friend who said it shows conservatism, like stupidity and conservatism. It's not just a selection effect. It's also a treatment effect. Like if you're in a world full where everyone is stupid and no one knows anything, like you're going to eventually become like them, regardless of how smart you started out.
Hmm.
So I think this is the problem, like the human capital problem. It's not like you drop in five geniuses and everything's going to be better. It's like the average of the group and like who's actually getting all the attention and who's influential. That's going to drag everyone who's smart down to their level.
Yeah, I feel like for my opinion, I guess on this a little bit, one issue that I've had with a lot of types of people, namely my two biggest ones were Jordan Peterson and Elon Musk, although it wasn't to do with politics, just when Elon Musk would talk about like fucking AI or flamethrowers or whatever. I had this issue where I felt like there are some people in life that when they become intelligent, or when they learn some particular thing really well, they're like, wow, I know this skill set very well. And a lot of people don't even realize how complicated this skill set is. And as a result of that, when I look at other things, I'm like, man, there could be so much complexity in these different areas of life. And I'm going to be very humble when it comes to approaching it. And then there are people who are like, I learned this skill set really well to a higher level than anyone else. Therefore, I'm automatically a master of everything. And this is a big problem I think I had with Peterson. I feel like he got into politics and just wanted to talk about everything. And I felt like a lot of it was not that great. I feel like Elon did this a lot in the past, even before I got into politics. And now when I look at the kind of like the tech world, I feel like that's a huge issue where I guess maybe they knew software or tech, or maybe not. I don't even know for that anymore. But when it came to literally anything else, they were like, oh, governments, we know how to run those. Oh, federal bureaucracy, we can tell you everything to fix on that. And to see DOGE go from, we're going to cut $2 trillion to now I think it's maybe 50 billion at best. What the fuck? Like the level of ineptitude, of incompetence there is staggering. The overestimation of like, well, since we're good in one area, we can run everything. I don't know. That is mind blowing to me.
Yeah, I mean, you think about kind of what kind of person becomes a tech billionaire, and it's through software. So it's pretty amazing to become a billionaire in software. It's different than a lot of other fields where you just sit there, it's you and your computer, you basically do stuff, and you become one of the richest people in the world. You imagine what that does to your mind. I just sat here, figured this thing out, became really, really wealthy. It's kind of not like working in a lab and inventing some kind of drug, or like drilling an oil well, or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I mean, I think there was, it's probably like a selection effect. It's probably they become kind of disconnected from reality. When people talk to them, no, they don't, they don't get challenged. You really have to work hard if you're a billionaire, because everyone thinks, whenever everyone, a billionaire must know that everyone who talks to them is like, if this guy just gave me $1 million, like he wouldn't even notice, and it would change my life.
Sure.
Right. So everyone can kind of, just think like get something from them. And so you never contradict them. You flatter them. If they bring up a point, you might think it's dumb, but like you would find a reason why it actually makes sense and it's actually genius. And I've seen this kind of process before. And so, yeah, I think it's like, this goes back to the founders. I mean, the, power corrupting people.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing a demonstration of that. I think when you combine it with right-wing ideology, because right-wingers are like kind of social Darwinists often, or individualists, they're into Ayn Rand and they're into Nietzsche and this other stuff. You take that on top of it, plus being everyone kissing your ass, plus having accomplished something. Yeah, it seems to be a terrible combination.
Yeah, I guess my issue, or the thing that I over-indexed on, was I would just, and I obviously, clearly it was just a bad assumption by me, I would just assume that that's not a thing that would happen, because once you've gotten to a certain level of success, you must be accounting for these types of things. That there's no way that you can be, super flattered as a billionaire, because you've seen it all and you would never fall for something that dumb, and you would notice surround yourself with people that give good advice. But I guess that's just a really stupid thing for me to assume.
People remarkably, I mean, they're just like me and you. I mean, they're it would make you something. No, they are kind of subject to the same human foibles as everyone else. And I used to laugh at when liberals would say like, these guys need to take a humanities class, these guys need to, or something like that. I don't laugh at that anymore, because there's something to it.
Yeah, there was a period in time where STEM people would get mad. It was kind of an internet meme of like, oh, why do we have to take a class on writing? Like, who cares? And then I think people had just had enough of dealing with autistic people in STEM who couldn't write a fucking email to a manager without sounding like, he has a chip on his shoulder, or they just can't communicate with people. It's like, maybe it's okay to take a writing class. Maybe it's okay to just figure out how to communicate with somebody. Like, these aren't bad skills. Soft skills are good. Okay, they're sometimes they're more important than hard skills, depending on what you're talking about. But yeah, I've been very disappointed by that world, because I was expecting. I don't even want to say so much more. I was expecting anything at all. Jesus, I've been very let down by that. Yeah. Where do you think?
Yeah.
Or go ahead.
No, I I'm with you. The tragic thing is, like, if you're a person like me, you like small government and you want to cut spending, like, and then Elon Musk comes along, like, oh, this guy built rockets, and like 2/3 of the satellites in orbit are just directly responsible to him, SpaceX, and he revolutionized, the electric car industry and all these other things he's done, and you're like, wow, now he's interested in my thing, which is like small government, and you think, okay, maybe he's gonna go find the smartest people who have been thinking about these things for decades, and they're going to tell him kind of like what you need to do. But like, no, he treats it like he treats it like nobody has ever thought of these things before until Elon Musk. And
Yeah.
there's no way he went around, no way he was this stupid when he was building Tesla, when he was building SpaceX. So what was it about like human affairs that gave him this kind of arrogance that he didn't need to learn anything? It's a kind of a fascinating question.
Yeah, this is one of the things that bother me so much. Like people will ask me on stream sometimes, like, "Oh, what do you think about this philosophy?" or "What do you think about, moral realism?" Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, whatever I can tell you, there are people that have spent centuries thinking on ideas, reading other people that have thought about these ideas, that have written on them, that have argued back and forth on them in their writings. I will never be able to spitball you anything more coherent or more profound than any of these other writers. Okay. Now, like, obviously you're asking me because I'm an entertainer and I can make it more, accessible or whatever. But if I was in the business of doing something related to philosophy or doing something related to anything, right? My number one skill, I would imagine, is, okay, I need to figure out how to find the people that can deliver me good information of that. Because I mean, it's like, and you should even know this because these skills are like directly applicable from the software world where, when somebody wants to do something, you don't say, how can we design this, framework from the ground up? The first question you always ask, has it been done before? Can we copy paste this and just like iterate on this so that we can focus on more novel problems? And yeah, to see a total disrespect. And I don't know if this comes from just the feeling of like government sucks and it's inefficient and bureaucracies suck from that position. So everybody's like, I can definitely do it better. And it's like, government is a very complicated and huge thing. It runs pretty well in the United States. I'm going to be honest. I'm majorly impressed in a way that DOGE came away finding essentially nothing, because there was a little fear in me and in all liberals and people on the left who are like, oh God, what if DOGE does uncover some massive corruptions or waste or fraud or abuse or whatever? And they basically came away with fuck all. That there is a skill to running this. And the fact that you wouldn't read or study on any of this, like even when you read like founding father stuff like Federalist Papers, these guys are constantly talking about other writings or older governments and societies that they're saying, like, we know that we can't have two executives because it didn't work. We know that we can't have, co-equal or we can't have judges making laws at the same time. Like, they knew this. And yeah, the amount of hubris is just unreal to me. Very frustrating. Yeah.
Now, I think like maybe a little bit in their defense are like trying to understand where they're coming from. I think that wokeness did do this to them because you would see somebody who would be like, I'm an expert and, I say that, eating dinner is like racist against African Americans or something. You would find these ridiculous people. And that person is a professor, at some major university. And you go, wait a minute. The whole thing is the whole thing bullshit? Mm-hmm. Like that, you start thinking that. Now that's not a justified explanation to say, okay, we can shut down the cancer research at Harvard because some woke maniac, was saying something.
To be fair, like, at the height of that BLM wokeness stuff, there was a professor, I remember reading her thing, writing about how you could like shoot and kill white people. It was a crazy speech, and it was given by a black professor. Like, damn. Yeah, so I'm sympathetic to that. But yeah, go ahead.
And so like liberals are gonna, it's not a moral equivalency, but like liberals really do have to pay attention to this stuff because it ruins the reputation of expertise and human knowledge. And Elon Musk probably thinks every like think tank person or every person who's a professor, special government is like some blue-haired freak who, thinks that whites should all pay reparations to blacks and, flog themselves all day. That's probably his model of like what the left is. And that's a dumb model, but like I can see how we got there.
Yeah, I think another big, like, I don't know if we call this a heuristic or a human logic or thinking problem. Another huge issue I have is people will look at a system and there are some things that they don't like with it, which I think is fair. Everything can be improved to some extent. But then they'll be like, because this thing is bad, I'm going to buy into the complete and total opposite of that and all of the implications of buying into the complete and total and utter opposite of that thing. And that just feels so remarkably silly to me, where it's like, if I was 17 or 18, I would do this because, we hate our parents and so we'll do the opposite. But at some point, I feel like we got to be like, okay, listen, my doctor made a mistake. He shouldn't have assumed that I was sick because of whatever. And, because I told him I smoked marijuana, that was dumb. But that doesn't mean now that when my wife has cancer, I'm not going to trust a doctor because when I was 18, a doctor assumed that I was smoking weed and that's why I was sick instead of like a pneumonia or some infection or whatever. I feel like the total ejection of everything from some of these systems has just been a little bit not good, a little bit unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, did you? So I wrote this article recently called "The Based Ritual." It was kind of so, it was so funny. It was a fictionalized account of like how MAGAs talk to each other when they get together now, and basically people I know were saying, "Oh my God, I've heard this exact speech," and because they meet each other, and because like the liberals thing for a while was racism, sexism, homophobia are the worst things. They basically now go to the opposite end. It's like you like like Mussolini. I like Pinochet. I like Hitler. Like, I think women shouldn't vote. I think women shouldn't go outside. Like, it is this kind of ritual where they're like going to the complete other direction.
Hmm.
And, sometimes these beliefs are just like naturally there, but sometimes they are also like a reaction to the left. So yeah, some of this stuff is just basic, like stupid tribalism. Like experts did this, told me something I don't like, or they have some kind of irrational view. Therefore, I'm going to the opposite extreme. It's childlike. It really is. You watch JD Vance, like when he tweets, there's always a formula. It's the exact same formula. When something's happening, you say you praise Trump, you bash Biden or the media. You say Biden did this or the media does this. Trump does this, which is great. And then there's so it's like the entire framing is like it has to be an adversarial situation, right? Which is good for keeping people on his side. And then it becomes and then it's like then he makes his point, which is sometimes on point, but often not on point.
Hmm.
Going back to the Trump thing, by the way, I was just thinking, I was recently looking at the comments of the Free Press. And I just do this like experimentally just to see like what's going on, because Free Press is probably like the biggest right-leaning publication out there or close to it, with a lot of commenters. And what I've noticed is that they are not upset from any ideological direction. The only thing that they upsets them is bias against Trump. Like, it is amazing. The Free Press is not like a MAGA it's a thing. It's not like they're marketing just to be the most, pro MAGA out there. It just happened that they were, right of center, and they have a lot of anti woke stuff, and they have some, pro Trump stuff. And somehow they became infested with people who care about nothing except personal loyalty to Trump.
Hmm.
So it is kind of insane how like me and you, I don't think we get it. I don't think we get like the worship of one man, but this is like so normal and natural throughout human history. And like masses of our fellow citizens just want to get into one man.
Yeah, it's crazy. I remember when I did my Jubilee thing and I was arguing, one guy came up and I think it had to do, I think the question or something was like, MAGA is a cult. And this guy's like, we're not a cult. And I think I asked him point blank, I'm like, is there anything that Trump could do that would make you like not support him? And the guy was like, there is nothing that Trump could do that would make me not support him. And I was like, Jesus. I went shooting and then I went out to eat with my mom and dad 2 days ago, and I asked my mom because I was curious. I had a friend with me, and I was like, I don't think you understand how crazy my parents are. And she was like, nah, they can't be that crazy. I'm like, no, trust me, they're insane. And I asked my mom, I was like, Mom, I'm just curious, if Trump were to run for a third term, she's like, I vote for him. I barely finished it. She's like, I'd vote for him, of course. I was like, what if Trump would have ran like as an independent against DeSantis, or I would have voted for Trump? It's like, okay, it's like a full on fucking cult thing. Like there's no bridge too far or nothing that can't be crossed. And it's just like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
Where do you
Yeah.
think the Republican Party kind of, I know there's like in the future, I guess, but like where does the Republican Party go after Trump? Do you think things just kind of like everybody kind of like squirms their way back to normal and that's it? Or?
Well, so but back when we had the vice presidential debate, there was a lot of commentary on Twitter, like, "Wow, things are so normal, like without Trump." Like Vance and Walt, whatever you think about their arguments or whatever.
Mhm.
Like, it's like it's not as crazy as Trump. We've just had like 10 years of like every presidential debate being about Trump,
Yeah.
and so there's like that argument that just like he is just like such a terrible force. He's just so immoral, and he motivates these people. He motivates like the worst people who only, with all due respect to your mother, the people who just care about worshiping this one man, who don't care about ideas,
Hmm.
and are not informed, right? So he goes away. That passion doesn't automatically translate to Vance or whoever
Yeah.
the next Republican leader is. And so that's the optimistic case that things get better. You have the Republican Party kind of, as it's JD Vance, maybe he just loses a normal election and he doesn't deny the results or try to overturn it or anything. That's one scenario. Now, before the election, I said I hope one of the reasons I hope Trump would, because he would go away. The more and more I see it now, I don't think he goes away. Even if he doesn't run for a third term, I think he basically look. If you imagine there's a MAGA faction who just their politics becomes whatever Trump tells us to do, we'll
Hmm.
do it. That's easy to imagine. That could be 10-20% of the Republican Party, right? It's like the pro-life movement or the pro-gun people.
Sure.
It's just like there's just a MAGA constituency, and MAGA just means whatever Trump says. And so like whatever weird thing he happens to be into at the moment, he like directs those people to go do it. It's like, don't take away my meds at my nursing home or whatever, right? Like you just imagine him like getting older and crazier and just having these kind of paranoia. And so I kind of feel like it's going to be just it's still going to be the Trump movement, and he's going to be like, like Reagan. If people, somebody, I said, basically Reagan, the memory of Reagan for the next 20, 30 years basically was a guiding light for Republicans, and they would cite Reagan and they say, this is what Reagan would do in this situation. And I say, Reagan never had a cult anywhere near Trump's. And then somebody said, well, Reagan had an ideology, Trump doesn't. And I say, well, that's sort of true, yes, but at the same time, like Trump can become a lodestar of like how you behave in public. Like you have to be like as rude as possible. Like he's like a spiritual guide. You're as rude as possible. You lie all the time. You just want to own the libs. You hate foreigners. It's like, so the Trump style, even if it's not an ideology, becomes like kind of central to Republican identity. So yeah, I'm not optimistic. I think there's been a brain drain that's not going to be fixed overnight. I think the base is rotten. I think like Fox News and these conservative influencers, they're absolutely terrible. Trump will Trump being off the scene will mitigate some of that, but yeah, I'm not optimistic that things just snap back to normal.
Yeah, I'm happy that he's old at least. Like if Trump was like in his 50s or 60s,
that's the only thing to be optimistic about.
That'd be super scary. Yeah, because I like if Trump was 60 or 65, like Trump is running for a third term 1,000,000,000,000%. I would feel so safe putting a significant amount of money, probably with odds on that, at like 2-1, that Trump would run for a third term for sure. I feel like one of the scariest things right now, and I feel like I've been vindicated on this, and I feel like it's like it just happens every single day, is that the scariest thing for me is there is no line for what conservatives are willing to defend if Trump demands that you defend it. And I'm worried that one day Trump is truly going to go unhinged, whether it's this invocation of the Insurrection Act or something, where Trump's like, this would be the most extreme, like we need to kill non-citizens, or we need to start deporting liberals or whatever. And I feel like a sizable chunk of conservatives would just defend it, because I've seen them defend things that I never would have imagined. There's so many different things that are beyond the pale that are very scary to me.
And you watch kind of the strategies they use, even when they don't defend stuff. No matter what happens, if they feel like they can't defend it, they will change the subject, or they will attack the left, or they will call it Trump derangement syndrome.
They use minimizing language too. Yeah, they'll be like, yeah, Trump was goofy when he did this thing. And we'll be talking about like the deportation of American green card holders.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's hard. I mean, you can't imagine it. This is the selection process that I talked about. And yeah, it's yeah, there's nothing like there was a Washington Post report about how the tariff decision got made. I mean, this is a big deal, right? This tariffs, 30-40% most of the world, and basically nobody no one will criticize. Miller and Vance at some point say, whatever you want to do, we'll do it. Vance goes off Twitter for like 5 days, then comes back to like talk about illegal immigration, and yeah, I mean, this is like it's a Darwinian process that's kind of led to the triumph of like the slimiest and most dishonest and most ass-kissing people, and it's what the audience wants. I mean, that's kind of the depressing thing and kind of the key point here. And so yeah, I mean, look, I will say there have been some people I think who've slipped through the administration. Who are not 100% cultists. So like no one with like a public profile has got 1 million Twitter followers is going to talk against it. Probably not the cabinet people, but there will be people who kind of like, I think Scott Bessent is a kind of guy who's like, he's played this ass kissing game, but at the same time he knows he's crazy and is trying to play the game. You can't get 100%. The selection is not 100%. So that's the hope. I mean, but like mostly we can't rely on that. Like we're gonna need serious
people to actually stand up and say no. Yeah, that's the scary thing, is just how much loyalty I guess is demanded, because then we don't have anybody pumping the brakes on insane shit. Like there are so many things I've spoken about in the past where like a chatter will come in and ask a question and be like, we don't really think about stuff like that because it's not a real question. Like a common thing we'll get when like monetary policy comes up or whatever, or macroecon comes up, people say things like, what happens if the US defaults on the debt? And I was like, we just don't really think about that. That's just not a thing that serious people talk about, because it's just impossible, But now that we're at an area where we're talking about like 10% tariffs on the entire world, and that's happened, and we initially were tariffing like, what was our average tariff rate? Like 40%? And we're at like 145 or 240 for some goods coming from China. Yeah. And we're like, well, when we're in that world and people, and I hate it, I don't even want to say this worked, because I don't think it was ever intentional. I think Trump just actually got a little bit skittish because of the treasury yields. When we're in a world where 10% tariffs on the entire world is like an okay thing from where we came from, which was the wacky roller coaster tariffs of random percentages on everybody, right? What the fuck? That in and of itself, I would have said probably was like a equally wacky position. It was like, what if Trump actually tariffs like 10% of everybody? It's like, this is the thing. Well, I said we should consider this in 2024 because Trump was saying it over and over again. But like ordinarily, we wouldn't consider like worldwide tariffs. I mean, it's a violation of WTO stuff. It would nuke a lot of our trading relationships. It would isolate us from the entire world. Like it wouldn't even stimulate domestic manufacturing because now why would you build something in the US when you can't trade with anybody else without being tariffed? Like this just wouldn't happen. And now we're there. And it's like, fuck, like what else could that be the case on, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big one that the markets are worried about is firing Jerome Powell. People who know something about economics say, and by the way, Jerome Powell's he doesn't even have to fire him. 2026, his term runs out.
Yeah.
And so Trump is gonna, appoint some guy he sees on Fox News who's just gonna do whatever he wants. I mean, it's hard to imagine him appointing someone who's kind of a serious person. And so there's that. He might just wake up one day and say defaulting on the debt is a big deal. Now, there's reports this morning that they're looking for Hexeth's replacement. Like there's a chance he's I don't want to be optimistic at all because
he's not being replaced with somebody more responsible. That's never happening, but
he might realize at some point it's in his interest, but I do believe now that like it's in his interest to kind of wreck the country because look, if he's got that 35-40% base and he just wants the feeling of like CEOs like coming into him hand in hand and like all these leaders and him being the belle of the ball, if all he wants, this is the North Korean model, right? You wreck the country, but you have absolute power. I don't even see the incentive. I mean, we've got to hope that like, and I'm not even confident this will happen. Like Democrats just need to crush them in like these. I was not, when they won the Wisconsin race, 10 points, but like, I mean, these aren't the numbers that I'm going to be confident enough for the same because they always do well. They're the educated party now. They do well in these kind of strange data, these elections on strange, unusual dates. And so we're going to kind of need like something like that. But just Elon's money and like Trump's charisma and kind of the shamelessness and like the Twitter censorship and the Twitter not even censorship, the boosting of the right-wing slop. I'm worried. I mean, Democrats have got to figure this out.
I've stopped I stopped trying to do like serious like ideological analysis, and I really just view Trump as basically like an influencer now. So I kind of like analyze him as I would like a YouTuber or a streamer. And I'm gonna say the happiest I think I've seen Trump ever was, I don't even know what the event was, but he was giving a speech to a huge crowd of people. It was after the Liberation Day. I don't know what conference or whatever this was, but
was it the Republican? It was like a Republican congressional something or other.
Maybe something like that. Yes, that. And that was the happiest and kind of like pep in his step I've ever seen him. And when I looked at him afterwards, doing press conferences and doing his Oval Office, White House, his live streams every day, he's fucking streaming multiple times now. Okay, he's got to get his YouTube ad revenue, and he's talking. It seems like he genuinely just loves when he's like the center of attention. Like I just did some crazy shit. People are calling my phone. Like I love getting phone calls. I love it when everyone's looking at me. He's like, I'm the center of attention. Like the whole world is looking at me right now. And that type of attention is just electrifying to him. And that's what it feels like. Like the analysis can literally just be all encompassing of that. And it will explain so much of his activity.
Yeah, I mean, people would say like, oh, he's not really trying to win in 2016. And then people would say like, he's not going to run again in 2024. He just wants the attention. I'm like, yeah, he wants the attention, which is why he wants to be president.
Yes.
Like, he doesn't want to just run for president. That's a good way to get attention, but being president is a different level. And so, I mean, it's the combination of like, he has this like toddler mentality of just like, look at me. And then like, he gets 40% of the country to support him no matter what. And it's like, what's the easiest way to get people to look at you? Doing great things is hard, right? Doing disastrous things and just being stupid easy. And wrecking everything is easy. They'll defend you no matter what. So, I'm down about this. This is the most depressed I've been about the future of the country, I think, as I can remember.
I think that's another thing that really bothers me is at least there was a veneer of, or it felt different in the past, but by the way, every generation says this, and I'm sure I'll say this in the future, like it's worse than it ever has been. Everybody says it, right? But I genuinely feel like I'm trapped in a video game with a teammate who's just like intentionally feeding the enemy team over and over again. And I feel it feels very weird and a little disgusting sometimes that I'm on my stream or I'm seeing liberals talking and it's like, what are we going to do? The United States is throwing away its position as the world leader. We're throwing away allies across the world stage, whether we're talking diplomatically, with people like Ukraine or Europe, or whether we're talking economically, like everybody, especially Canada and Mexico. And it's like all these concerns and fears, and it's like, holy fuck, we're destroying the country. And then you look over on the conservative side and they're like, whoo-wee, like, let's see what the tariffs will be tomorrow. Like, oh, your S&P 500 is dropping. We didn't have retirement portfolios anyway. Like, suck shit, motherfucker. Like, we're bringing back manufacturing. We're going back to the coal mines. Like, Americans need to go to the mines some more. It'll build character. It's like, Jesus. Like, it feels like these people to some extent they don't give a fuck about the country at all. And it feels like very one-sided and weird. And it's like, ooh, this doesn't feel good right now,
Yeah, I mean, there's a polarization of like there's education polarization, but there is a kind of, I think, Trump. There's a morality polarization. It's like he has remade conservatism in his image, and I feel kind of bad for Democrats. Like I don't know like how long they'll continue trying to be serious people. Like what are we as like how would we have a system where like one party just doesn't care about truth at all? And,
yeah.
It just has no consistent principles, and then they come in and they just wreck the government every time they're in power. And what are Democrats going to do? Are they just going to patiently try to hire like smart bureaucrats to try to do something just so it can get wrecked again next time they lose, and just so like whenever they lose an election, they're going to like accept the results, but the other side wins the election, or they win an election, it's going to be challenged, it's going to be called illegitimate. Like what happens to the Democrats in that world? Do they like the hope is they just need to win? Like imagine Trump goes away, he doesn't have charisma, it's just a bunch of JD Vance and a bunch of incels, and like Democrats just feel safe. They can maintain the rule of law because they're the ruling party for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So if it's like going back and forth like this for a while, they're probably going to become just as bad as the Republicans.
Yeah, and that's my issue too, because like I don't know how much of my content you've ever consumed. We've talked a few times, but like I am like a very hardcore capitalist. Like I'm a social democrat, but very much on the capitalist side, not like masquerading as a socialist. So like market forces are real. Things like rent control suck shit. I feel very strongly about a lot of these things, that just pure cash incentives to people to help them buy homes probably puts a lot of bad person, etc. Like these are feelings that I have, and I'm worried that like another 10 years of Democrats just talking to themselves will result in some of that very, very leftward thought when it comes to economic stuff or wokeness, and then eventually we just slingshot right back here. And it's annoying because I feel like there isn't an ideological counterbalance right now, a serious debate partner for the Democratic Party in the United States. It's just Democrats who I think are trying to govern, and then you've got tankies and the far left that hate everybody, and then you've got like MAGA, which is just I don't fucking know. I don't know anything about any of this. Like these are and the thing we talked about this a little bit earlier, the willing to defend anything. This is the thing that drives me the craziest. I say that there's like 20 things that drive me the craziest. Is they'll say some shit like Trump is not serious when he says X, and then when Trump does X, they will defend it with their fucking lives. Trump isn't serious when he says he's going to tariff the whole world, and then when he does it, it's the greatest idea ever. And then when he undoes it, it was just a ploy to art of the deal. And it's like, and I feel like, are we going to say the same thing about Greenland if he tries to actually launch a military incursion on Greenland, or Canada or Mexico? Like we're at war technically with Venezuela now. That's where the Alien Enemies Act comes from. Nobody seems to give a fuck about that. He's deporting green card holders. Nobody cares about that. What about citizens, naturalized citizens? Like they'll say that it's not serious or that they don't think he'll do it. But if he does do it, I know they'll defend it. And that drives me fucking crazy.
Yeah. I think we're just going to have to, we're going to have to kind of wait this out, and we're going to have to, I think, keep talking about just kind of like how morally wrong. The reason like this society thing works is like people have some kind of shame. Like why doesn't previous administrations, like why doesn't just Bush say anything and then like try to mobilize his base against the Democrats? And partly it's harder because there's like, it's harder to do back then because there wasn't social media and so forth. And so like the MSM had more power. But a lot of it in the end is just like elites see themselves as like people who should have basic moral principles. And MAGA has just tossed that aside. I mean, Hegseth, he could cheat on multiple wives, he could be a drunk, he can do anything. Cash Patel can do crypto scams and sell anti-vax.
Oh my God, we didn't even get into the crypto, all that shit, the Trump coin that's still out there.
There's no shame. Nobody cares. Like nobody.
Yeah, there's not even the veneer of. That's the thing too. It's so in the open that like I would imagine like if I were to tell somebody 20 years in the future, I was like talking to like a child or whatever, and I'm like, let me tell you how they tried to steal the 2020 election, and they're like, wow, like tell me like what was this, like what was declassified or unclassified, or like what did they release? And I was like, no. This was shit they were just on Twitter. You just read about it publicly. They were all talking about it. Like the difference between QAnon and the current like conservative conspiracies is they're just out in the open. open on it, right? Like everybody was critical of Biden for doing the mass pardons, right? On the, especially forget Hunter Biden, like on the J6 committee, for instance, he gave these huge pardons to them, and all the Republicans had to do was just shut the fuck up about it and say like, yeah, that was corrupt, fuck him. Trump is literally on the news saying like, I can't even go after the J6 committee now because Biden pardoned him. And I'm like, damn, what a vindication of Biden's pardons there. What the fuck? Like, they're so open.
Yeah, that's almost something I've like been surprised by too. And I'm trying to think like, what like they can apologize for this. This guy doesn't even pretend, right?
Yeah,
he just doesn't. He doesn't pretend to care about the Constitution.
Yeah, Trump bragging, I've gotten over $500 million of pro bono legal services given to us after we targeted law firms with EOs. I'm like, bro, that's extortion. Holy fuck! You like, how could you ever talk about lawfare again when you're doing shit like this in the open? It's in executive orders.
Yeah, and I mean, they made the January 6th into heroes now. They're martyrs. They want to. I don't know if this went anywhere. They wanted to set up a victims.
And they wanted to bring them the J6 choir to do a performance at like the fucking Kennedy Center or whatever. It's like whatever.
That ended up happening. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And all these conservatives who before were like, well, I would maybe accept a certain pardon for some J6ers, maybe not the violent ones. Yeah, it shouldn't be a blanket one. And then Trump does a blanket one, and he's like, those people didn't have due process, so I support all of it. It's like, or the Democrats already did it anyway. And it's like, with who, motherfucker? With BLM. And it's like, what do you mean? Like, nobody got prosecuted for BLM. That's bullshit. There were like 10,000 plus arrests and tons of convictions. What do you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. How many other conservatives do you have on this show? Do you have a lot of Trump supporters or other people who you talk to? Because I would be... I'm kind of beyond it, but like, you do streams for a living, so
no, I feel like all the conservatives hide now. None of them want to debate anybody because I think they realize a little bit, at least like the larger figures are like, this is indefensible. Like, how the fuck, like, how could you have, and this is a thing that is like the scariest for me, okay, or I'm gonna have to put on suicide watch. It's gonna be 2028 when I hear a Republican talk about literally any principle. It's gonna be so hard to be like, excuse me. You're going to pretend to care about lawfare when we had XYZ. You're going to pretend to care about economic policy. You're going to talk about like economic, or like, the stock market. That's not really a good indicator of how the average person is doing. So it doesn't matter that it fell 20 points. Oh, hold on. It rose 10%. We're back, baby. That's the Trump effect. Hell, it went down again. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Losing money builds character, according to Benny Johnson. And it's like, it's this super, ironically enough, post-truth world, the neo-Marxist, whatever the fuck, post-truth, post-modern world that Jordan Peterson warned us about, and it's like, holy fuck.
The Trump movement. I mean, it's incredible. There was a conservative influencer I was talking to on Twitter not too long ago, and he was basically saying, there's this elite human capital idea, but the founders understood that like, being intelligent or whatever wasn't everything. You needed virtue in society. Like, okay, that's true. Like, I believe you need virtue among your leaders, but like. Donald Trump is like the answer to that, and it's like if you're probably barely old enough to remember like the Clinton impeachment thing, and like the public opinion on that was like, it's a blowjob. He lied about it. Who cares? That was like kind of public opinion, but the Republicans, they would say like, no. President's character matters. Like the fact that the president is doing this and lies about this stuff, like that is going to influence society. And maybe there was something to that. Maybe,
dude. I remember standing in front of my mom in her flight suit because my mom and dad were in the Air Force. I remember my mom crying when I was. They were about to drive me to school. My mom was crying, telling me, "Stevie, the president is the commander in chief, and you don't understand. When the president of the United States treats women that way, treats his wife that way," and she was crying, saying this, and she's like, "I have to deal with." And when that Trump grab him by the pussy stuff came out, which was like one of 10 things, including the McCain thing that we thought would sink him, my mom's like, Stevie, boys will be boys. Like, they say goofy things. And I was like, what the fuck? What is this change up, Mom? What happened to character and virtue and all that? Like, this guy literally lost his second wife because he brought his mistress with him to a fucking family vacation and was on the news with her. What the fuck? Yeah. Oh my God.
It's Trump magic. I don't know. Like if George Bush in 2007 like started cheating on his wife and doing these, like I think it would be different. Like I do think like they would maintain the principle. It's something about this man.
Yeah.
Something about this man is just like there's some evolutionary like keyhole, and he has the key. Like his personality is that, and like their brains just shut off and they completely submit. That's the only way I can understand any of this.
Yeah. What do you think from a global political perspective? How cooked is the United States, do you think?
I haven't been paying attention to the international news as much because there's so much like things he's doing to kind of destroy the country domestically. I've been paying attention to the cutting the science funding. He's been the due process stuff with the court cases. Um, but we'll see. I hope that my hope is that there will be a kind of understanding of
Understanding?
like there will be an understanding. There will be some kind of like yeah, I think it's gone. I mean, I think it's not like they just think this is a bump in the road of the American relationship. There's like they think that we're kind of out of our minds. I think China looks like a reasonable, rational actor. They're posting videos of Ronald Reagan and talking about free trade being a good thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, I see a lot of people just like you can't deal with this industry. Like the Japanese, they send a delegation. They just basically they say that the Americans want them to buy rice. Like they want the Trump administration wants Japanese to buy rice from
Oh.
America. So they're just out of there. I should check that. That was a headline I saw. I'm not
Hmm.
100% sure if that's real, but I think I saw that. And yeah, it's the trust is not going to be there. I think like our position is going to depend a great extent on like maintaining our economic lead. This is just going to, but all of that is going to be terrible. I mean, we haven't even talked about like what's going on with science funding, but also like foreign students, like making
Oh my
life
God,
tough
who
for
are
people who
all,
want to travel here.
yeah, the amount. One of the things that triggered me the most, it was a really good argument I heard. I think it was a Cato Institute argument. To be fair, they're always like pro immigration and they don't even seem to care that much about illegal immigration because it's, libertarians or whatever. But that the arguments that they made around DACA kids, that it's like, even if you're the most racist motherfucker in the world, even if you hate illegal immigrants, these are people, these are children that we've paid to educate in our country. They're registered with the government and not committing crime. These are like the cream of the crop type of immigrants you could have in your country, right?
Yeah.
We've paid for them. They're coming into their tax-paying years, and we know they're not committing crimes because they're registered with the government. They can't have major crimes. They would get deported. Why would you deport these people? Or yeah, all this fighting with like, why are we attacking fucking like Harvard and Columbia? These are like world-renowned institutions of education in the United States. Everybody around the world looks at these as favorable things, and we're like, yeah, get them out of here. Deport these motherfuckers. Get these here. I was like, bro, they literally subsidize our own education. They come here, they pay
Yeah.
full tuition and shit. These
Yeah.
is like the deportation or the attack of like kind of like I guess you would call it the elite human capital or institution.
Yeah, it's a war on elite human capital. I mean, they hate foreigners and they hate educated people, and so they see a foreign student, they see a kind of something they can squeeze that they will go for it. Look, this is basic like they don't believe in that. This is this is nationalist ideology. The ideology is that the only thing you can get from interaction with foreigners is some kind of negative, some negative
Culture or
outcome.
whatever.
Either they're screwing you or you're screwing them. If they come and they get a job, it's a one less job for an American. They don't get like the American university system, American science is like the engine of the progress of the whole world.
Hmm.
Like when they talk about like China and they talk about like, oh my God, they're our competition, this, that, which is like true, but like there's a lot of Chinese students who've come to the United States who've
Yes.
done amazing things.
Hmm.
If it's true that, COVID leaked from a lab, it doesn't mean like the answer is actually more cooperation with China. It's not like going to war with China or something like that. It's like figuring out what happened.
Hmm.
There's just none of that. I mean, they're just these people are kind of it is like I was reading, there was a really good book review I read about like cargo cults in the Papua New Guinea, and the cargo cults is a famous thing, but it's actually there's a fascinating backstory to it because these people the people in Papua New Guinea, they had their indigenous beliefs about like spirits and ancestors, but then they like adopted some version of Christianity and they combined it. Like there was a guy named Jesus, like the West was rich because there was a guy named Jesus who was like one of their ancestors who like gave them all their cargo, and hopefully one day Jesus would like give things to the Australians and they would bring it to Papua New Guinea. So like they had these like complicated beliefs, but the beliefs were very they were very kind of primitive. Like people have stuff because somebody gave it to them from up high, or like, and sometimes they thought like their god was trying to send them something, but the white people were stealing it. And this is like how Trump kind of understands international affairs. It's like the reason people have something is because somebody screwed you over.
Hmm.
There's no like cooperation. There's no kind of process that produces the wealth. It just we have to be strong and we have to cut the right deal.
That zero sum game understanding of the whole world is very frustrating. The inability to engage in mutually beneficial stuff is like it's underlining so much of conservative thought right
Yeah.
now, and it's so fucking annoying. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was I thought I thought this was a leftist thing, but it is a conservative thing, but it's to when it comes to foreigners. But then the foreigner thing like kind of swallowed everything else and became the priority of the administration. And yeah, we're all worse off for it.
Yeah, and I think we kind of saw a glimpse of that when the H-1B schism happened on X for a little bit. You saw that, right? Where there was that huge fight
Oh,
over.
I was like one of the main people defending the entire subcontinent of India.
India,
They were
yeah.
at some point they were sending me Venmo. They were finding me on Venmo, and like 6 or 7 Indians were sending me money. Like they were they really appreciated my defense
Your
of them.
defense, good job. I hate it when people conflate immigration issues also that like the United States has with immigration issues in other countries. Because I think like for Canada, there's legitimate issues with how many immigrants they might be bringing in, especially even when it comes to Indian people or in the UK or in Europe, you know, after the Syrian refugee crisis or different types. Like they definitely have these issues. The United States does not have these issues, or at least nowhere near to that extent. Like people that come to the United States, and you can be the most racist motherfucker you want. You can believe in racism or whatever. The reality is it's really hard to cross. Even today, it's hard to get across an entire fucking ocean. You are picking the best of the best of the best that are getting it. You're not getting like there might be some immigrant fuck ups in this country from India or from China, but not on average. Like it's hard to get to the United States. Somebody coming from India to go to a fucking U.S. university is not becoming a 7-Eleven clerk owner that is like displacing American jobs or whatever. That the conflation of every country's issues into like one massive populist issue is very fucking annoying.
Yeah. During the campaign, I did a long article on crime. They were claiming that immigrant crime was out of control and everywhere. This is the eating dogs and cats stuff.
Oh God,
And
yeah.
there's European countries you could look at, and the migrants will have arrest rates 6 times that of natives. That's common in Europe and places like France and some of these other countries. In the U.S., no matter how you slice the data, the immigrants have always been more law abiding than natives, and it applies to just about every country you want to look at. You could break down the data any you want, and like conservatives can always go, well, what about Venezuelans in this one Aurora, Colorado? Like if you're desperate to find some evidence of immigrant crime,
You'll find it.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, I kept asking
Exactly.
people that way. Like, if immigrants are murdering people all the fucking time, why have we been talking about Lake and Riley for a fucking year? Don't you have another name for me at least? Like, how is it the same motherfucker?
Well, California went from like 5 or 10% Hispanic to like 40% Hispanic in like 30 years, and the murder rate plummeted. I mean, you could look at kind of the data here of what's happening. I shouldn't say 10%. I don't know what it started at, but it did get to 40. It went, much higher Hispanic numbers over the last like 30, 40 years. And yeah, the state is pretty much safe. It's they're starting with their conclusion on everything having to do with immigration. They're starting with the conclusion they're working backwards. Immigrants are bad, therefore they commit a lot of crimes. Immigrants are bad, therefore they're taking our jobs, and trade with them is, trade with foreigners is screwing us over. Immigration is bad. I hate like Vance when they ask him about housing. He like wants to be a serious guy who takes like concerns of the American people seriously. Like that's the way he sees himself, and that's the way like Ross Douthat and these people treat him. And it's just like his only answer to housing is like they're competing with illegal immigrants for housing. That's like it's like when you got a hammer, everything is a nail.
Yeah.
There's just nothing beyond that, and it's like sucks that's what he thinks thinking is. Like experiment. Like here's an issue, find a way to tie it to immigration. You could always do that if you're smart, sure, but it's not the way to understand the world.
Yeah. And it's really annoying too, because like even if you are an idiot and you don't know anything about economics or immigration or whatever, like it feels like one of the frustrating things is even the internal positions that these people have are wildly inconsistent. I think a really good example is this whole tariff thing. Why are we tariffing the whole world? We're tariffing everybody to bring manufacturing back to the United States. Oh, okay, good. What did we announce today? Oh, Trump's going to find deals with these countries to get rid of the tariffs. Like, well, wait, why are we getting rid of the tariffs? I thought we wanted the tariffs because we wanted manufacturing here. And it's like, well, but if we can trade with them with certain rules or whatever, it's like, well, why? I thought we didn't want to trade them. I thought we wanted to make it all here. And then nobody ever brings up in these fucking interviews these two huge facts. One is we're trying to deport a fuck ton of people right now, 20 million people theoretically. And two, our unemployment is really low. Unemployment is like 4.5%. It's still below probably what natural rate of unemployment should be. Who's going to work these jobs? That question has never been answered in any of these fucking interviews. Nobody asks it. Who is going into these factories to work these jobs? We're basically at full employment. What the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite was when they announced the pause on tariffs for electronic components from China. And they, I don't know what the current state is. I don't know. Trump said he went back. I don't know what the current state of it is. But at the time, it was like, okay, we're going to, we're gonna not tariff electronics. So like, we're not gonna try to build manufacturing in iPhones or whatever. But like toys from China, like low wage labor, like screwing the heads of Barbies on, like that's what we're going to have 140% tariff rate on.
Somebody literally, yeah, I think somebody literally said that. Was it Lutnick or was it Vance who was like, those with the mini screwdrivers and screwed them in?
Yeah, with the screwdrivers. Yeah.
What
and there
the
was
fuck?
the one about fish. Did you see Lutnick talking about fish in the Oval Office?
I don't think I've seen that yet.
He's like, we're going to have the best, freshest fish, and that's because of Trump's leadership. I don't know. He was talking about something. I don't know. This guy is really a scoundrel. I mean,
It's
you
like,
look at the kind of people. They get worse and worse. The character. We thought Anthony Scaramucci was. He was like a joke.
I don't know if you tweeted this or I saw somebody else tweet this. Dude, the Trump one cabinet, they looked like a fucking all-star team compared to Tillerson and Pence and Mattis. Like these people were they were on another level. Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is, and there was this great graphic I saw. Noah Smith had it on his blog where basically every single person, like Trump appointed like something like 40 something cabinet members or advisors or something, and it was like every single one like was against him in 2024 except the ones who had gone to jail, like Bannon and like Peter Navarro. So everyone was against Trump or a criminal, right? That's the only thing. And like some like Stephen Miller, but like it's amazing. These are the people he appointed. The deep state conspiracy, like people Donald Trump went and chose them, and they came back and said, "Good God, don't elect this." What an idiot I am. I knew this. I knew this before the election. I thought I knew better than them. I thought it would work out somehow. But obviously I should have taken that seriously. I should have taken seriously kind of what I saw among MAGAs and like what they've been. Yeah, this kind of idea that like the world is unpredictable, but like people's characters and what they're actually like and what a movement is like matters, not just like looking at the Republican, platform. Well, the platform just basically says now we know whatever Trump says, but if they had a platform, like that's insufficient. Like you really have to take these character and kind of cultural dynamics seriously.
Yeah, I think we took a lot for granted in terms of how a democracy functions. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's just repeated. I call it these like truisms that like, oh, government is wasteful and inefficient, and oh, bureaucrats are bad. And these are just things that's like, oh yeah, I guess it sounds right. I guess we always say that. And now we kind of see more, well, maybe some level of bureaucracy is good, or, like you heard things that supposedly, was it Mattis or who, that like when Trump was leaving last time after the first term, that he wanted to basically pull everybody out of Afghanistan because like, fuck this. And they just basically ignored him. They're like, no, we're not going to do that. And then who knows how much other stuff. Well, we do know how much other stuff, like around the election, when you had people like Bill Barr who were like, I'm resigning. This is a guy who was like known as wanting to expand like powers of the president. And he's like, this is bullshit. I'm out of here. You're fucking crazy. Like when even Bill Barr is saying that.
Bill Barr's actually one that did vote for him. I think Bill Barr didn't say who voted for him. So I guess it wasn't as much of a consensus as I thought. So there were some people who were like close and knew better, but I wonder what Bill Barr thinks now. He probably has some doubts.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch the documentary on HBO about the effort to steal the election? I forget what it's called, but it was like this big documentary. They had interviews with Bill Barr. They had interviews with people in the White House. Anyway, it's good. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's so much interest. Are you familiar with the January 3rd showdown in the Oval Office, where Trump was about to fire Rosen and Donahue and make Jeffrey Clark the new attorney general to send out the fake letters? There's so much stuff that like nobody knows. Like this was like a monumental, insane event. And then listening to oh my God, my favorite guy in the world. Hirschman, all of his testimony relating to that and how much like they were just shitting on Clark and like bullying the fuck out of him and all of it, because this guy was literally a random environmental lawyer who's like, I'm ready to become the head of the DOJ with 2 weeks to go. Let's go. Yeah, it was wild times, man. Jesus.
So is there anything we can say? Like, is there any... So when you say government is inefficient, now I think that like DOGE, like Musk would say that he fired like, a large portion of the Twitter staff, and the site still works. It doesn't work as well. It kind of screws up every once in a while, but he would say, well, look, we're getting more for our money. So is there like a possible scenario where like things don't break, right? Like, is there a possible scenario if like DOGE just fires like I guess it doesn't matter because they fired all these people. It doesn't save that much money. But
Hmm.
like, if we don't see like any disasters, planes falling out of the sky, environmental catastrophes, like if we don't see those, like, could there be a case that, okay, maybe we freaked out a little bit, at least on the Dodge stuff?
I mean, like, it's possible, but my issue here is just that it could be done. Even if you thought this was a good thing to do, it could be done so much more intelligently. And there's two huge, prongs of thought I have on this. One is that it can be done so much better, and two, the way that it's being approached and the way these conversations are happening. Now we can't have real conversations about how to make it better. A really great example of this is: did you follow any of the claims that they continue to make over and over again about the Social Security Administration paying old dead people?
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I followed that story.
Do you understand how that works? Why there were old people in? Have you read into that? Like the Death
Yeah,
Master
yeah, I have.
file?
It's something like they don't take the names out and they don't bother to go and clean it, but it's basically people who just died a long time ago.
Basically, yeah. And that the database they're looking at, it's called the DMV, or the DMF, the Death Master File, where this is like an external database that the SSA will update with information they have that other agencies can use. The Social Security Administration does not use this database for Social Security payments at all. They don't rely on it. And then like all of the issues relating to a lot of government stuff have already been known about, like sometimes they'll literally just cite the OIG reports or GOA reports about the government and say, look what DOGE found. And it's like, this is a 2023 audit. What the fuck? We didn't need you. You're literally another layer of bureaucratic reception. Yeah.
No, there's no going to be no story that comes out that says they did this in a smart way.
Yeah. And so my issue is
really,
basically that like, because it has to be done in a smart way, it has to be an understanding of like what government is, right? Like the nice thing about government is that we can offload onto it some things that the market just won't take care of because there's not like a direct financial incentive for it. Like I think it's fine that pharmaceuticals fund the last mile of research, because I don't know if we should be in the business of how do we pick and choose, drugs to trial, because it's impossible. But general research is vital. Nobody's going to fund that research without the government. And there's a lot of projects like that. So when we say like the government is inefficient or wasteful, we need to be really careful about what that means, Yeah.
it's the scientific research that I think is the strongest case for what the government does and what is kind of most cost effective. And yeah, this is what's frustrating is that's one of the things that they seem to be going most after, especially with Harvard. I wonder, like I'm trying to say, maybe there's some way this works out. The Tyler Cowen, when he's on his podcast, sometimes once in a while, he'll do a devil's advocate kind of thing. I don't know how much he believes it, but basically says nobody ever reforms government. Everyone talks about reforming government. So maybe they come in, they break things. It's very stupid. But then, like, you fire a lot of employees, then you can come in later. Another administration can build something new just because there's too much kind of this kludge that's been built up over the years, and nobody can reform anything. And you sort of have to just take an axe and start cutting things down. That's an argument. That's like the best
I
case you
guess,
can
yeah.
make for
I mean, another question too, though, that I run into, and it's funny because even people that are good at business, I'll ask them this. Again, it's just a lot of it is truisms. Like government is too big, and it's like, well, is it? How big should the government be? Like the size of the federal workforce, I don't think has changed in like 30 years. Now, a lot of technology and stuff is enabled to do more, but like, what is too big? What should the goal be? The funnest question to ask around this is like, people freak out about the debt or the deficit. They'll be like, oh my God, the national debt is way too much in America. And it's like, that might be the case. What do you think the debt should be? And so many times people would just be like 0. It's like, well, should it? Like, doesn't every single person borrow money, now because interest rates are lower than whatever they would gain with investing in the money? Like having debt 0 is probably a bad thing, right? If I talked to you about an individual and I said, I know a guy and he's $20,000 in debt, you'd probably assume he's broke. But if I told you about a guy who's like, oh, he's like out, or he's like negative like $5 million right now or something, you probably assume it's a rich person who's doing something with the money. Like normal people don't have that level of debt. But like the fact that there's no goal in mind is highly problematic. I think it actually maps onto some progressive issues, where they'll talk about DEI or affirmative action, and it's like, okay, well, what's the goal? There might be some systemic barriers keeping women or races of people out of certain jobs, but do we know that we've succeeded once we've hit absolutely equal parity among everything? Like, is parity the goal? It has to be 50-50, otherwise there's a failure, and I think with government, it's the same thing. Like, does it have to be as small as possible, or what even is the goal? What are your key performance indicators? What are your metrics that you're even using to figure out if you hit an appropriate goal or not? And it seems like they just want less government for the sake of less government rather than making anything more efficient.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's kind of, and Musk, I think, and the people around him and the people who are cheering for him, part of it is just like firing employees feels good because they just seem like a bunch of left-wing bureaucrats. And like, there's like a person, like you can just say this person no longer has a job and you could feel good about yourself, even though that's like not the way to make government. And even, there was an article in the New Republic, they were cheering that Trump was being this stupid because if he appointed his own people to like the National Labor Relations Board, for example, or the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, he could change policies, but a lot of the Biden stuff stays on the books. So like there's permitting, they want to speed up permitting, but they don't have the people to approve the permits. There's a lot of stuff like that where like even your goal is like smaller government, more efficient government. You just need the employees. The employees are not the problem. It is again this zero sum mentality, right? It's like the foreigner is an object. Like the MS-13 is like a thing you can focus on and call everyone you don't like MS-13, and then like the government employee is like the symbol of what's gone wrong with government.
Yeah, not good. And then obviously there's all the contradiction in terms of, they sometimes they say they want less government and then they want $150 billion expansion to the Pentagon fund, or they want less government. They don't trust like the feds, but they want to massively expand funding for ICE to deport people. And it's like, yeah, what are we doing? Yeah.
They like the Pentagon, although they did say at one point, did they say we're going to cut hundreds of billions, and then the next day they said we're going to have the biggest Pentagon ever.
I mean, like there was a time period a week and a half ago where you had to be careful what you were releasing online because like the statements about shit for tariffs, for instance, would change like hourly. Like you might release a video and it's like 3 hours out of date. Like you thought we weren't tariffing anybody, but China's up to 150% now. It's just like, it's crazy.
Sad times, man. Sad times.
Yeah. Any other thoughts or ideas or anything?
Nope. I appreciate being on, Steve, man. I think I'm gonna write a longer piece about why how I got this wrong, kind of psychological reasons and kind of what I missed. But at this point, I don't see much that's redeeming in
cool.
MAGA.
Wait, oh my god, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I have a knock on my door because there's a package I'm waiting for. Wait, I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. Hold on. Sorry.
Okay. Hey, Steve streamers. Steve, watchers. Can't see I'm in, let's see here. Should I just go?
Thank you so much. Sorry, fuck. I've been waiting for that, and they... Okay, anyways, my bad. Sorry, you were going to write a bigger piece on it. Yeah,
exactly. And I think at this point, MAGA is like, I don't think there's much that's redeeming, and I don't see kind of the route to self-correction. So, it's kind of clear what to do from now on.
One final kind of question or like line of question. I'm just curious. Are there other people in your life that you're trying to like pull out of that direction now? And what do you think is like even the effective way to do it? Or why do you think you broke from it, but most people obviously still haven't?
I was always independent. So when I was endorsing Trump, it was like, I accepted January 6th was a bad thing, and I accepted that he lies all the time and so forth. So I was always kind of independent, and I was not gonna become a cultist no matter what. So I think I'm in a unique case, despite the New York Times writing an article trying to make me part of a trend. I do think there are. I mean, most of my influence comes from, I think, writing publicly. I used to be in a lot of group chats. I get annoyed with them and I end up leaving, and I'm not in many anymore. If I have something to say at this point, I just tweet it out. But that's mostly how I'm trying to get to people. I think I've kind of pioneered like a critique like from the right. Like, you guys believe in IQ. Okay, these people are very low IQ and very stupid. Like, I hear more people talking like that. I hear more people using elite human capital like just in normal conversation. And so there's that. But then there are people who are like in the administration, who are close to the administration, who I talk to, who are kind of seeing it now. And some of them are, going to go work in the administration, or maybe they're still there. And like, they're not like me. Like, I have kind of more freedom in that, like, I have an audience and I could just say, I changed my mind on this, and people will say, oh, you suck, or, whatever. But like, if your entire career was like getting a job to work in the Trump administration, to work in conservative politics, I understand they're not as free as I am. They can't just, change their views like that. And so, I mean, I think that like the Trump cult is just like an overwhelming force right now. And I'm hoping to like have those people to maybe, push back when they can, but like to be something, to be the core of something for when this man eventually leaves the seat and there's time to build something else.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate the conversation. Good luck on your political journey. And hopefully there'll still be a country to talk about whenever we chat next.
All right, cool. All right, good talk, Steve.
Yeah,
Bye.
see you later. Bye. Nice. Someone said, science is secondary. Security is the most important aspect of what government does. You want your property rights, courts functioning, trade functioning, anything at all. You must have monopoly of power. I mean, that's kind of true, but as with all things in life that are more complicated than a second grade science class, these things oftentimes work in balance, right? Part of your security is your ability to maintain your scientific research. Part of your ability to maintain elite scientific research is having good security. Like, these things always have to work in tandem with each other. You can't really do one without the other. How many military conflicts were there solved? Or I guess it feels like the history of the world that a lot of military conflict was like whoever unlocked some new part of the military tech tree, like all of a sudden had an overwhelming advantage very quickly over other people and they had to catch up. And that was a big part of early warfare. So, I mean, I like it when Richard comes on. I think I'm a lot closer to him than I am to the Gen Z guy you interviewed this morning. I'm probably closer to Richard than the Gen Z guy, yeah, for sure. It's time to
Don't mention.
consume more H3 drama slap. Oh, it's a live stream.